Ow!
I'd be rubbish if there was an apocalypse. I haven't got the first clue about hunting. I'd probably cry if I had to kill my own dinner, and as soon as the hot water went off and the bog roll ran out, I wouldn't be able to function as a normal human being. I guess it would be a bit like being at Reading Festival forever, but without the music and the overpriced lukewarm lager. I'd be dead within a week. In fact, that's probably giving myself too much credit. I'd probably be dead within a couple of days. And I think that's why I love survival games so much. They put me in a place way out of my comfort zone with little to no resources, so I can pretend that I'm some kind of badass survivalist or just someone a lot braver than I actually am. All whilst I'm curled up safely in bed in my Superman Jimmy jams. Whether they be survival sims, survival horrors, or my personal favourite, a mixture of both, I find the struggle to survive against all odds to be one of the most immersive gaming experiences a player can have in this day and age. So here's a look at 5 survival games I'm most excited for in 2015. I went snorkelling when I was travelling in Thailand, and one day a massive fish with really sharp teeth and evil little eyes came right at me from out of the darkest depths of the ocean. I've never swam so fast for the shore in my whole life. I may have pooped a little, and I've been terrified of the open water ever since. I think that's why Subnautica is so fascinating to me. It's a survival game based entirely in an alien ocean, and while it focuses heavily on underwater exploration and construction, there's always a small sense of dread lurking over you, as you are never quite sure what kind of hungry beasties are lurking just out of vision in the murky waters. If you are looking for comparisons, think Minecraft meets Jaws and you'd be sort of on the right track here. The player is a lone survivor of a spaceship crash, and they must use the rocks, minerals and dead fishies found underneath the waves to craft components for an escape vessel, all the while making sure they don't drown or starve or get eaten by gigantic underwater monsters. At the moment, the game is playable in earliest access form as a mini sandbox game with a few crafting options, and even though there's still a huge way to go until it's an actual full-on game, the developers state that they intend to have it finished sometime in 2015. Some people out there might call H1Z1 a DayZ rip-off, and I'd be one of them. This DayZ rip-off should be on Steam Early Access by the end of the month, but where DayZ rip-offs like The War Z have failed in every possible aspect to emulate Dean Hall's record-breaking survival sim, this one might actually succeed in creating the game DayZ wants to be before DayZ does. And quite possibly a long time before DayZ does, because, let's be honest, those chaps over at Bohemia do like to take their time on these things. Expect a full-on sandbox survival MMO just like DayZ, but with crafting and vehicles already in there from the off and base building not far behind. As long as it can recreate the incredibly tense atmosphere of DayZ as well, Sony's game might just win over their legions of fans, and I myself can't wait to try it out. Human Element used to look like this, a free-to-play open-world survival sim with photorealistic graphics and a character-driven narrative. But thanks to a sudden switch from a PC free-to-play model to a premium console experience, it now looks like this. That's probably going to cause a lot of people to do a sigh noise with their mouths, and I can agree the initial concept looked and sounded pretty compelling in a dark and gritty kind of way. But really, who says all survival games need to be slow and depressing? Maybe they don't. This new iteration of Human Element turns the genre on its head and sees 2 teams of 5 survivors battle it out for resources which they can then use to build fortifications and extra defences, which makes it sound a bit like the fantastic multiplayer portion of The Last of Us mixed with Call of Duty with some MOBA elements in there to round it all off. There's also zombies, of course, which can be potential hazards, or if approached wisely, can be lured to the front door of your enemy's base while you flank around the outside for a surprise attack. The coolest twist for me though is that dead players, as long as they are not killed by a well-placed shot to the brain box, are turned into AI zombies. So you could potentially cause havoc in an enemy camp by sniping a few of their guards and letting the freshly risen corpses do all of your dirty work before you swoop in to get all the glory. In every space movie ever, there's always a bit where an astronaut loses his or her grip on their spacecraft and then they float slowly off into space. The reason that happens is because it's probably the scariest, most horrible way to die ever, and movies want to make you feel things. So imagine slowly floating away from safety with no way to get back, no hope of rescue, and only the prospect of a claustrophobic death in the emptiness of space to keep you company. That's the kind of feeling I imagine Adrift is going to conjure up as you struggle not to suffocate amongst the wreckage of a destroyed space station. Billed as a first-person experience, there's no guns and no zombies, just an unforgiving environment which you must explore and scavenge for parts to repair your damaged emergency escape vehicle. It's as super slow-paced as you'd expect a spacewalk to be, but the graphics look amazing, and with the added addition of VR support, I can imagine this will be a breathtaking experience. Literally. Or should that be figuratively? I can never remember. Not all survival games need to be open-world sandboxes with crafting mechanics. Survival horror games like Outlast and Alien Isolation give you that same sense of helplessness and fear, just in a more linear experience. That's where the final game on my list, Colat, comes in. Looking like a cross between Amnesia and The Long Dark, Colat is based around the Dilatov Pass incident, where in 1959, 9 ski hikers went missing on the Russian mountain Kholat Syak, only to be found a few days later in corpse form with horrific unexplainable injuries. Expect a slow-paced survival horror experience that uses something called Fear Manager tech to monitor what the player is doing and maintain a high level of tension in order to ratchet up the anxiety levels. The fact that the story is built around a real-life spooky mystery adds some extra creepiness to the game as a whole, and I can't wait to brave the mountain and see what dark secrets there are to uncover. Oh, and also Richard Sharp, aka Sean Bean, has just signed on to play the lead narrator of the game, adding a bit of star power to the proceedings. But the smart money should be on him dying at some point, what with him being famous for dying and all that. Obviously, there's plenty more survival games on the way in 2015, be they of the horror or the sim subgenres. So let me know which ones float your boat in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and do that subscribe-y thing. Goodbye! Ow! You son of a...